Hi, I'm Lawrence. Welcome back to the Bible Unhinged, where we unpack the beautiful, frustrating, and sometimes unsettling contradictions buried deep in Scripture. And today we're heading into one of the most iconic moments in the Gospels, Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on what we now call Palm Sunday. It's the scene we all know, crowds waving palm branches, shouting, "Hosanna!" Jesus riding into the city like a king. But have you ever noticed how much the Gospel accounts disagree on the details? Let's rewind a bit, right to the beginning of the event. Jesus is just outside Jerusalem. According to all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he sends two of his disciples into a nearby village to fetch a donkey. But already, we start to see the differences. In Mark 11 and Luke 19, the instruction is simple. They're to find a colt, one that's never been ridden. Jesus will ride it into Jerusalem. Clean, straightforward. John 12 is even simpler. It skips the whole fetch quest and just says, Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it. That's it. But then comes Matthew 21, and this is where things get interesting. Matthew quotes Zechariah 9:9 as a prophecy. Look, your king is coming to you, humble, and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And in Matthew's reading, he takes this literally, as in two animals. Matthew 21:6-7 says, they brought the donkey and the colt and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. Now let's pause here. That's not just a quirky storytelling choice, it's a clear misreading of Zechariah. In Hebrew poetry, it's common to repeat the same idea in two ways for emphasis. Zechariah isn't talking about two animals, he's talking about one donkey, described poetically. But Matthew, likely trying to prove that Jesus fulfilled this prophecy, takes the parallelism as literal. So Jesus ends up riding both a donkey and a colt. At the same time, alternating between them, it's never explained, and no other gospel supports this version. So we're left with a question. Did Jesus ride one animal or two? Most scholars agree the single animal version is more historically plausible. Mark, the earliest gospel, only mentions one colt. Luke follows suit. John doesn't even mention a colt being fetched, just that Jesus sits on one. It's Matthew alone who introduces this odd double donkey detail. But here's what makes it even more fascinating. Matthew was written with a Jewish audience in mind. So Matthew leans heavily on Hebrew scripture, and he wants Jesus to fit every messianic expectation, even if that means bending the text a little. In doing so, he introduces a contradiction, not just with the other Gospels, but with the very prophecy he's quoting. And look, this isn't about calling Matthew careless. It's about recognizing how Gospel writers weren't journalists. They were interpreters. Each one shaped the story to emphasize different theological truths. Matthew wants to show Jesus as the fulfillment of prophecy, even if that means Jesus straddles two animals. Mark and Luke are more focused on the immediacy and humility of the event. John, writing last, sees the moment through the lens of glory and irony. The king enters not with military force, but on a humble beast. So what do we do with all this? Do we try to mash the four accounts into one harmonized version, or do we allow each to speak in its own voice, contradictions and all? Maybe, just maybe, the tension is part of the story's power, because in each version the central truth remains. Jesus enters the city not with violence, but with vulnerability. Not on a war horse, but on a colt. And if there's a donkey, or two, maybe that just reminds us that even the holiest stories are told through human lenses. So now over to you. What do you think? Was it one donkey or two? And does it matter? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this gave you a new perspective. I'll see you next time on the Bible Unhinged.